The 60-year-old woman. Dubai can't stop talking about. She walks through the quiet dawn, a figure wrapped in years of secrets, her steps soft as the hush before sunrise, her eyes carrying deserts and oceans together. No sound follows her, yet the world listens, for she is the story that traveled faster than wind, the whisper that rose from the palace walls, the echo that refused to fade. Dubai speaks her name without speaking. For how do you describe a woman made from light? How do you paint a life carved from storms? Every corner of the city remembers her presence, not because she demanded it, but because grace is louder than any shout. And she carried grace like a lantern in the dark. She is 60, but 60 bends before her. Age kneels at her feet, for she is not counted in years. She is counted in moments when she rose, when she held her world together with bare hands, when she smiled through the ache of waiting, when she forgave without being asked, when she loved without expecting return. They say she moved like old poetry, the kind written before ink learned fear. She spoke to hearts even when her voice was silent. Strangers felt something shift when she passed. The city tilted. The air softened. Even the stubborn sun paused, as if remembering something it had forgotten long ago. Some say she once held a young dreamer in her arms, a boy who grew into a man who grew into a leader. A man who remembered her not as 60, but as timeless, as the one who carried him through storms, as the mind that shaped his courage, as the heart that steadied his breath when the world pressed too hard. Others whisper that she was loved, not softly, but deeply, beyond rules, beyond reason, beyond the borders that guard royal hearts, a love that outlived fear, a love that returned even when forgotten, a love that waited at the edge of destiny, with patience only rare souls hold. But the city does not argue about who she is. They only know she matters. They only know she changed something. They only know her story is stitched into theirs, a thread glowing in the tapestry of Dubai nights. Her beauty was not the kind painted on faces. It was the kind that settled into the bones, the kind that grew stronger as years wrapped around her. Lines near her eyes carried memories, not regrets. Her hands were maps of roads she survived. Her voice was soft but steady, the tone of someone who had nothing left to fear, nothing left to prove, nothing left to chase except truth. Every evening she stood near the sea, watching the water breathe, watching the horizon lean closer, as if waiting for her to speak. But she did not speak. Not yet. Her silence held more weight than any word. Her silence carried the stories of decades, and the sea listened. The wind listened. Even the restless city paused. They say destiny is a circle, always returning to its beginning. And she, the woman of 60 years, was living proof. A chapter once closed had opened again. A bond once buried had risen. A love once quiet had begun to move. Slowly, surely, inevitably, Dubai cannot stop. The city remembers the night everything changed, the moment her quiet steps stirred an unprepared sky, as if fate itself rose to greet her. For she carried a presence built from storms survived, and from a patience carved in years that shaped her strength. She returned not as a memory, but as a truth walking in daylight, a truth many had forgotten, and many had tried to bury beneath the weight of time. Yet she arrived untouched by the dust of absence. Her eyes held the glow of someone who had lived, not softly, but fully, not briefly, but deeply. Dubai felt her return like a shift in the wind. Windows opened, voices paused, hearts steadied. For the woman of 60 years, the woman woven into stories that refused to die, had come back to claim her place in a tale that never ended. Some say the city exhaled, as if relieved that destiny had finally caught up. For she had been missing from the rhythm of things. A missing chord, a missing flame, a missing thread in the royal tapestry. Yet she carried no pride. No noise, no demand. Only the stillness of someone who knew her worth, without needing applause. Only the calm of someone who had walked through deserts and understood the language of silence. People watched her move with the grace of old legends. Children stared with curiosity, elders with recognition, and those who feared truth looked away. For she was a mirror, and mirrors do not lie. It was said that a certain man, a man whose name moved empires, felt the echo of her return. Though distance wrapped around him like a wall, though duties weighed his shoulders like ancient stone, though countless voices filled his days, one whisper cut through it all. Her whisper, her memory, her presence. For love once born does not die. It only sleeps, waiting for the sound of a familiar heartbeat, waiting for the one who first called it to life. She walked through the marketplace, not as royalty, not as a ghost, but as a woman who had lived long enough to understand the value of every passing glance, every shared breath, every folded sorrow. Her heart carried stories, the kind that take entire lifetimes to build. Stories of loss, of rising, of choosing kindness when anger seemed easier, of forgiving paths that wounded her, of loving those who never learned what love meant. People whispered, not in cruelty, but in awe, for she glowed with a light not shaped by youth, but shaped by truth. And truth is a rare jewel, shining even in shadow. She met the eyes of strangers, each gaze a small exchange of souls. Some felt comfort, some felt warmth, some felt exposed. For she looked into people, not at them. Every step she took seemed to awaken the air, as if the ground itself remembered her footsteps, as if the wind recognized her scent, as if destiny whispered, "You have returned." And we waited. In the quiet of night, she sat by the sea again, the same sea that had witnessed her sorrow, the same waves that had carried her hopes, the same tide that had pulled her dreams back and forth, between what could be and what had been lost. Yet tonight the sea was... The sun rose slow, as if careful not to disturb the path she walked, as if the light itself bowed in quiet honor, for the woman whose story had returned, to claim the silence it once left behind. Dubai watched with breath held, for the whispers had grown into waves, and the waves had grown into truth, a truth no one could ignore. Not now, not anymore. The man whose life shaped nations, the man whose heart once found shelter in hers, stood alone in the early morning stillness, a stillness broken only by the sound of his thoughts, a sound too loud to silence, for he felt it. The shift, the tremble, the awakening, her presence, alive once more. Within the pulse of the city, he had lived through years of duties, years of choices shaped by crowns and vows, years of walking forward while pieces of his past remained behind, quiet but breathing, dormant but not dead. Yet the news of her return moved through him like a forgotten flame, a flame that remembered her hands, her voice, her calm, her strength, her truth. He closed his eyes, and the years between them vanished. The young man he once was stood beside the present man he had become, both held by the same memory, both stirred by the same name. Her name, across the city. She stepped through streets painted in gold light. She felt the morning wrap around her, gentle, tender, hopeful, as if guiding her toward something or someone. She did not rush. Her steps were measured, steady, born of a life that had learned patience. For she knew that destiny did not need chasing. It needed only courage, and a stillness strong enough to wait. People bowed their heads as she passed, not out of duty, but out of respect, for she moved with the dignity of one who had survived the ache of distance, the weight of time, the sting of being forgotten, and had risen with her softness intact. She reached the edge of the city, where the palace stood grand and silent, a silhouette against the sky, a place that once held her story, and then lost it, a place that remembered her, even when people pretended not to. She paused, her breath deep, her heart steady, for she knew the next step would break the world she once knew, open or close the door, forever. He stood on the balcony, eyes searching the horizon, as if expecting her, as if waiting for a sign, a movement, a breath, anything to tell him that the story he once buried had not been buried at all. The wind shifted, light touched her face, and from the place where fate stands between two hearts, he saw her, not as 60, not as years, but as the woman who had shaped the pulse of his youth, the woman who taught him tenderness, the woman whose silence had followed him. Through every room he walked, the world stilled, the air held its breath. Time bent, as if honoring a reunion long overdue. He walked down the steps, slow, unrushed, with the weight of 1,000 unspoken truths resting upon his shoulders. She waited, not trembling, not unsure, but certain, for her heart had survived storms, and this moment was the calm after every storm. When he reached her,